Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Frontiers of Knowledge. Just imagine an animal and a micro animal at that, which can be kept frozen for 30 years. Frozen. And yet it can survive. Imagine an animal that lives for 30 years without food, can live in volcanoes, and also endure the vacuum of space, and yet survive. Imagine an animal that can survive even an asteroid impact. I'm referring to that asteroid which made dinosaurs go extinct. As a matter of fact, it is said that only the eventual death of the sun that is sufficient to finish this animal. And what is this animal? This animal is called the water bear. The scientific name for this indestructible animal, a new species of which has been discovered recently, is tardigrade. And I was referring to the new species. This new species was discovered by Tokyo's Keio University's researcher, Arakawa. He lives in a multi-story building, in an apartment building, and he gathered the sample of this animal in the parking lot. What happened was that he plucked a clump of moss protruding from the concrete, and lo and find, in that moss was this micro animal. The analysis of this animal revealed that it was a variety of tardigrade, and it was a bit different than the ordinary tardigrade because it had chunky legs and bumpy eggs. It is called Amphionicus. So this animal gives a clue how the animal has changed over millions of years. This most indestructible animal on Earth isn't an ordinary microscopic organism. As I said, this is almost indestructible. They were first discovered in 1773 by a German zoologist, but they were not characterized as animals, as a part of the species that inhabit this earth until a few years had passed. They are called moss piglets. They resemble a pig. They are also called water bears. They are plump, multi-legged, and can only be seen under a microscope. Why? Their size is around 0.02 inches. That's it. At the largest time, when they grow maximum, they are 0.02 inch long. They have very primitive eyes, and they can be found all over the world. They are in the dark, deep sea. They are in the hot, humid. They are in the erupting volcanoes. They might be on the top of Mount Everest. They might be in Antarctica and Arctic. They might be in Sahara. And then how do they spend their life? They spend their life moving around in moss, lichen, or even the leaves which fall from the trees. And for the last 500 million years, they have been existing in this earth. They are that extinct. In this period, many species were born and many were obliterated, finished. but not these tardigrades. Most resilient animal known, ever known to science, and then they can live as for decades. Their life is not small. And can you believe it? The scientists testing them, heating them up to 300 degrees centigrade, and then froze them to minus 320 degrees Fahrenheit. They were still alive. They also sent these animals to the space, and they came back. There was no effect of the space, gravity, or anything. What happens is that in the extreme circumstances, they turn into a type of hibernation, which is called cryptobiosis, in which they recoil into a compact, dried ball and stay dormant for infinite period. As I told you, it was experimented, and some tardigrades are frozen for 30 years. And then after 30 years, when they were brought back to life, they were unfrozen, they were again mobile, they were walking around. They can suspend their metabolism and survive immense amount of pressure. Even X-rays have not harmed them. That is what the toughest animals are. They're very hardy animals. And the scientists are now working to find out how they survive these extremes and then apply those conditions to the human beings. The new species, as I told you, discovered by that young researcher in Tokyo, is 168th type to be discovered. So 170 different species approximately, they are there. And every year, 20 new species are found. The visual organs, mouths, spotting, leg shape. These are what differentiate one species from the other. And they produce, spherical solid eggs. They are pockmarked with protrusions like a ring of flexible, strong filaments. And then, these protrusions attach the egg to the surface where they are laid. They are so strong that the eggs don't fall. And then, these species are descendant of an ancient strand. And that shows how the tardigrades in 500 million years have spread. And then, what was amazing was that one tough, tiny piglet, as I told you, has the ability to be freeze-dried. And these can be stored at higher temperature than traditional vaccines. Now, the scientists are working how to make the traditional vaccines resemble the tardiness so that the tardigrades' capabilities are transferred to vaccines and those vaccines become impervious to temperature. For example, insulin has to be stored in a fridge. And once you take it out, then of course you can keep it for a month. That's it. So what is it that makes these animals almost indestructible? And these animals have a dehydration resistance that can tell the scientists how to preserve biological material like cells, human cells, crops and meats. And if the same thing can be extended to stem cells, the man would become absolutely safe from all the diseases because the stem cells of the healthy people can be stored and used when another person falls sick. So instead of organ transplant, the organs which are kept, and even they have to be transplanted within a certain period of time, otherwise they lose. But if this process is known, the organs can be preserved for a much longer time, and not only preserved for a much longer time, but can be used. And what happens is the immediacy of the disease can be countered. It is possible that these are not the only species which are indestructible. It is possible that there are other resilient species elsewhere in the universe. After all, Shakespeare had said long back, there are things beyond heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamed of in your philosophy. But then we are not talking of philosophy, we are talking of science. And when we are talking of science, we have got to see how this word has evolved and how the diverse creatures can serve the human interest. This new species discovered and this new indestructible animal discovered, can it be used to study and experiment so that a man can become indestructible? I'm not going into the moral aspects of making a man indestructible. I'm talking of the purely scientific aspect. I'm not talking whether a man, if he becomes indestructible, what shall be the fate of that man and what shall be the fate of the humanity. No. I'm talking at present only of the possibility of the man being almost indestructible, enhancing age, not only the longevity, not only the quantity, but also the quality. And one thing more, for the space exploration, if these qualities can be imbibed in our astronauts, how much more safer they would be. That's the point to be considered. These human creatures, these denizens of this world like you and me, when they go for interplanetary travel, when they go for the interstellar travel, are face to face with diverse problems. And if they can have, or some or other, the scientists can prepare a vaccine that makes them immune to the plus 300 degrees Celsius or minus 329 degrees. Look at the range. Then, for the armies fighting at the borders in Sichuan or other places where there is extreme cold, would not have to wear heavy, cumbersome winter clothing. The people who go to the mountaineering K2 and Mount Everest would not have to be bundled up with extra luggage to protect, just one vaccine and they are ready to go. Similarly, divers and astronauts, army men, in fact all over, we can have human beings lead a much more comfortable life, provided we can transfer this imperviousness to the climatic changes. Life would be much more easier, much more pleasanter, and much more happy. Secondly, as I said, the use of the stem cells, if they can be somehow or the other kept indefinitely, would be a great advantage to save life in case of pandemics. So there is a lot of scope of study by the scientists. And one thing more, that is our poets and creative writers have another example to go by. They can, when they are referring to size, they can say, well, your intellect is as small as that of a tardigrade. Or if they want to show the bravery, they can say you are as brave as a tardigrade who cannot be crushed under a road roller and who cannot be fried and who cannot be frozen, beyond the pale of all torture. Wow, what what a wonder it is to see such a creature, less than 0.02 inches long, with legs, 6 legs, bumpy, primitive eyes, immune to all the pressures that we are accustomed to. Isn't it really amazing to see yet another marvel of nature? I'm sure you like it. Thank you.